In today's video, we'll look at 3 tragic cave exploration incidents, each more traumatizing than the other. Stick around, and as always, viewer discretion is strongly advised.
September 11, 2002. The morning began like countless others in Hawaii's rural Fern Forest subdivision. 3 hunters prepared their gear in the pre-dawn darkness, checking headlamps, spare batteries, and emergency supplies one last time. Their destination was familiar, the Captain's Trail, a winding path leading through dense forest toward the Pu'u'o eruption area. They'd navigated these trails before, but Hawaii's landscape always held surprises. The path twisted through thick vegetation and towering tree ferns, everything appearing normal at first. Then, at some point, the hunters made a fateful decision. Whether following fresh tracks or chasing curiosity, they strayed from the established trail. In Hawaii's volcanic terrain, this seemingly small choice became dangerous. The island's unique geology hides a vast network of lava tubes, hollow tunnels formed when flowing lava cools on the surface, while molten rock beneath continues to move. These tubes stretch for kilometers underground, creating a treacherous maze beneath their feet. The hunters soon came across what looked like a cave entrance, and curiosity won over caution. The opening seemed safe enough to explore, but they were unknowingly stepping into Hawaii's most complex lava tube networks. These weren't simple caves with clear paths. They were twisting, branching tunnels like an underground maze. Some passages sank deeper into the mountain, while others connected to entirely different tube systems. Without maps or detailed knowledge, navigation quickly became a challenge. Hours passed and excitement turned to concern, then real fear. Under the harsh glare of their headlamps, every tunnel looked the same. Each turn led to another identical passage, and retracing their steps only made them more lost. Above ground, families grew worried when the hunters failed to return on time. Experienced or not, they knew Hawaii's volcanic terrain could be unforgiving. As darkness fell over Fern Forest, a call to emergency services was finally made. The Hawaii County Fire Department received a report of 3 missing hunters last seen near the Captain's Trail. Calls like this weren't uncommon given the island's rugged terrain and maze-like lava tubes. Firefighter Brett Matsuda, 41, was among those responding. A seasoned member of the department, he had years of experience in technical rescues and had faced Hawaii's toughest environments, from dense forest to unstable volcanic ground. He knew better than anyone how dangerous this landscape could be. Matsuda understood the urgency. In Hawaii, missing persons faced multiple threats: dehydration, hypothermia in underground spaces, hidden pits, unstable terrain, and the ever-present risk of active volcanic activity. Time was critical, and every minute counted. At first light on September 12th, search teams fanned out from the Captain's Trail, each taking a possible route the hunters might have followed. The jungle was brutal. Walls of ferns, vines, and undergrowth formed green tunnels that swallowed rescuers whole. In places, the growth was so thick they walked across the tops of plants, never touching the ground below. This was the hidden danger of Hawaii's volcanic landscape. What looked like solid ground was often just vegetation suspended over empty space, concealing caves, pits, and lava tubes. Locals knew to watch for subtle dark patches where plant growth shifted, a telltale sign of a hidden opening. Around 10 a.m., firefighter Brett Matsuda pressed through a thicket when his foot landed on what seemed to be firm ground. In an instant, the ferns collapsed beneath him. The floor he trusted vanished, revealing a camouflaged void hidden under the jungle's cover. The hidden opening measured about 1.5 by 2.4 meters, large enough to be deadly, yet perfectly masked by dense vegetation. Without warning, Brett Matsuda plunged straight into darkness, falling nearly 30 meters into one of Hawaii's massive lava tubes. It was a sheer drop into the unknown, silent, violent, and sudden.
The impact at the bottom was brutal. Matsuda's helmet and backpack absorbed part of the force, but the damage was catastrophic. He suffered broken ribs, making each breath agonizing, spinal injuries that risked paralysis, and severe internal damage to his liver and kidneys, vital organs now compromised. Above ground, his team heard his distant cry and instantly knew what had happened. In Hawaii, rescuers were all too familiar with this nightmare. The lush jungle concealed countless hidden pits, making every step a gamble. The mission instantly shifted from finding the missing hunters to rescuing one of their own. Brent Matsuda lay seriously injured at the bottom of the lava tube, trapped by smooth volcanic walls that made climbing impossible. His condition left him unable to move, and time was running out. Firefighters quickly assembled their rope rescue gear and began a high-risk extraction. The narrow opening barely allowed equipment and rescuers to be lowered, and the slick walls offered almost no natural anchor points. Every step required precise coordination and technical skill. Matsuda was carefully secured in a harness, each movement calculated to avoid worsening his spinal injuries. Once lifted to the surface, he was immediately readied for air evacuation. A helicopter was called in to transport him to the nearest trauma center. The remote location made ground transport impossible, and with Matsuda's life hanging in the balance, there was no room for delay. While rescuers raced to save Brent Matsuda, the original mission pressed on with renewed urgency. Search teams pushed deeper into the wilderness, now fully aware of how dangerous the terrain really was. Matsuda's fall had exposed the hidden network of lava tubes beneath their feet, giving rescuers vital clues about where the three missing hunters might have vanished. The team split into smaller groups, each following different potential paths through the volcanic landscape. They scoured the area for other concealed cave entrances, hoping to find a connection to the same underground system where Matsuda had fallen. By now, the hunters had been missing for over 24 hours, and time was slipping away. Using their knowledge of local geology and insights from the newly revealed tube system, rescuers mapped out the most likely routes the men could have taken. At each opening, they called into the darkness, pausing to listen for any sign of life. The breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. A search team member, carefully working through a section of tubes several hundred meters from Matsuda's accident site, suddenly stopped in his tracks. He heard something faint, human voices echoing through the volcanic passages. Following the sound, he moved deeper into the twisting tunnels, navigating cautiously through the smooth, shadowed walls. The voices grew louder until he finally discovered the three missing hunters. Huddled together in a wider chamber, they were cold, exhausted, and without working lights, but they were alive. The hunters had endured nearly 24 hours trapped in the labyrinth-like system. Inside the constant 18 degrees Celsius temperatures of the lava tubes, their bodies had begun to succumb to mild hypothermia. Confusion and sluggish thinking had set in, but they were conscious and, with assistance, able to walk to safety. The rescue team carefully guided the hunters through the winding lava tubes, navigating the complex underground network with precision. After hours of cautious movement, they finally emerged into daylight, tired, cold, and shaken by their ordeal, but requiring only warmth and rehydration. Meanwhile, at the hospital, doctors confirmed the severity of Matsuda's injuries. His broken ribs had punctured tissue, making every breath painful. Spinal damage required immediate stabilization to prevent paralysis, and internal injuries to his liver and kidneys posed a serious threat to his survival. He was listed in critical but stable condition, though doctors remained cautiously optimistic. In the days that followed, against all odds, Matsuda made a full recovery. January 25, 1986, 4 cave explorers set out for a long-planned expedition into Parker's Pit Cave, a destination known among spelunkers for its steep vertical drops and extreme technical challenges. The cave demands advanced rappelling skills and specialized equipment to navigate safely. Unlike horizontal caves where you crawl or walk through passages, Parker's Pit is a vertical system where one mistake can be fatal. That morning, the group arrived fully geared, confident they had the right equipment for the descent. Among them were experienced explorers who had tackled vertical systems before, but experience can't replace strict safety discipline. As they prepared to descend, their first major challenge awaited: a 22-foot, 6.7-meter vertical drop requiring precise rappelling technique and flawless equipment handling. The upper bound was more than just a drop. It was a deadly trap waiting to claim the unwary. A 22-foot, 6.7-meter fall onto solid limestone could mean shattered bones, crushed skulls, or snapped spines.
Two of the explorers descended safely, using proper rappelling technique and reaching the bottom without incident, unaware of the disaster about to unfold above. The third explorer began his descent, but had unknowingly made a critical mistake while rigging his carabiner brake bar device, a tool designed to control descent speed on a rope. When set up correctly, it provides smooth, controlled rappelling. But this device demands precise rigging. The rope must pass through the carabiner, over the brake bar, and back down through the carabiner again. This path creates the necessary friction to control descent and avoid a deadly freefall. Unfortunately, the third explorer made a catastrophic error in his setup. While the rope passed through the carabiner and over the brake bar, he skipped the critical final step, threading it back down through the carabiner. Without this, the brake bar was useless, offering no friction and no control over his descent. The trap was set. Just 22 feet, 6.7 meters below, the unforgiving limestone floor waited. The moment he stepped off the edge, the device failed instantly. The rope slipped freely, and terror struck as he realized he was falling. The walls blurred around him as he plummeted through the darkness, the whoosh of air rushing past his ears. Gravity dragged him down mercilessly, faster and faster, while the others watched in frozen horror. Then came the sickening impact as his body slammed into the limestone floor. The team expected to find their companion's broken body on the limestone floor and rush toward him. But when they reached the impact site, they were met with something that defied all logic. The fallen explorer was conscious and moving. Against every odd, he had survived a fall that should have killed him instantly. Shaken, but somehow uninjured, he struggled to his feet. It was nothing short of a miracle. Yet while his body seemed intact, the psychological shock hit hard. His hands trembled uncontrollably as the reality set in. He had just stared death in the face. The sensible choice would have been to abort the mission and get him checked immediately. But in a decision that bordered on madness, the group chose to continue deeper into Parker's pit. The man who had just cheated death insisted he was fine and pushed forward with the planned exploration. This choice revealed a deadly mindset, the belief that surviving one close call makes you untouchable. Ignoring the warning signs, they descended deeper into Parker's pit, where the passages grew more technical and the dangers multiplied. Waiting below was the cave's most infamous obstacle, the Z-bend. A true nightmare passage, it forced explorers to twist and contort their bodies through spaces barely wider than their shoulders. The Z-bend had trapped people before, locking them in positions where they couldn't move forward or back. The first caver entered feet first, sliding on his belly. He wriggled carefully toward the first sharp bend, warning the others how tight it was. The second followed close behind, also feet first, but this time lying on his back. The moment he slid into the Z-bend, its deadly nature became clear. The limestone walls seemed to clamp around his body, locking him in place as he struggled forward. Every slight movement made the rock's grip tighter, pressing against his chest and making each breath harder to draw. Just before the first sharp turn, reality hit him. He was trapped. The limestone's embrace left no room to move forward or back. What had seemed like a challenging squeeze seconds ago was now a life-threatening situation. The Z-bend compressed his chest, turning every breath into a battle for air. Panic made things worse. As his body tensed with fear, his chest expanded slightly, making the already narrow passage even tighter. The stone walls no longer just confined him, it felt like they were trying to crush the life out of him. The others heard his desperate cries for help and knew time was running out. If they didn't free him quickly, the Z-bend would claim another victim. The rescue began instantly, but the tight, twisting passage made every move dangerous for both the trapped man and his rescuers. One positioned himself behind the victim, while another worked from the front, each risking entrapment themselves. The unyielding limestone resisted every attempt to shift his body. Every push, every pull felt like a fight against the stone itself. The rescuers were forced into contorted positions, edging dangerously close to getting stuck alongside him. Meanwhile, the trapped man's breathing grew shallow, his face pale as the relentless pressure crushed his chest. Oxygen deprivation was setting in fast. Inch by agonizing inch, they worked to pull him free from the Z-Bend's stone grip. Every small movement became a battle won against the unyielding limestone, which seemed to determine to claim another victim. The rocks scraped their skin and tore at their clothing as they forced their way forward, squeezing through spaces that felt impossible for the human body to navigate. Their trapped friend's strength was nearly gone when at last they managed to work him through the worst of the Z-Bend. His body slipped past the narrowest point just as his endurance reached its breaking point. A few more minutes, and the passage would have claimed his life through sheer exhaustion and oxygen deprivation. The successful extraction marked the end of what had turned into a nightmare expedition inside Parker's pit. 2 potentially fatal incidents in a single trip, an extraordinary concentration of deadly encounters, could have easily left at least one of them dead.
September 24th, 2005, Sequoia National Park. 8 researchers gathered at the entrance of Empire Mine Cave. Leading the team was Shane Freer. With him were Mindy Goldberg, a 25-year-old explorer, Dave Bunnell, a 53-year-old veteran, and Joel Despain. Their mission? Explore and document the forgotten ruins of a silver mine carved into the earth back in the 1870s. Empire Mine Cave doesn't welcome visitors easily. The entrance is a vertical pit, straight down. No walking in, no gentle slope. To reach the cave floor, you need ropes, harnesses, and precise technique. Each team member prepared carefully. Ropes were anchored to solid points. Every knot, every carabiner, every harness was checked and rechecked. In vertical caving, one mistake can be fatal. Shane went first. As team leader, it was his job to test the descent. His harness was locked in. Headlamp switched on. Rope system loaded. And then, one step at a time, he disappeared into the darkness below. Shane moved slowly, scanning each section as he descended. A lead caver's job isn't just to go down, it's to read the cave, spot hazards, test anchor points, keep the team safe. Above, the rest of the group waited, gear ready, nerves steady. The real journey was just beginning. Shane's rappel into the entrance pit went smoothly. Once he was secure at the bottom, Mindy began her descent. She followed the same path and landed safely. Without pause, she moved past Shane and into a narrow chimney passage that extended deeper into the cave. Shane stayed behind, watching as Mindy disappeared.
Chimney passages are a different kind of challenge. These narrow, vertical cracks force cavers to wedge themselves between opposing walls, using their backs, feet, and hands to inch through. It's slow, awkward, and physically demanding, very different from walking a horizontal tunnel. Next up was Dave Bunnell. At 53, he was a seasoned explorer. His rappel was flawless, the ropes held firm, and he reached the bottom of the pit without trouble. But caves don't follow rules. Even after decades of stability, a shift underground can change everything in seconds. Dave was about to face that reality. As Dave began his descent into the chimney passage, following the same route Mindy had just taken, the cave turned hostile. Without warning, a rock that had sat undisturbed for who knows how long suddenly broke free. No one knows exactly what triggered it. Maybe it was the repeated foot traffic, maybe it was a subtle shift in temperature, or maybe it was just time finally catching up to the cave. Whatever the cause, the result was immediate and brutal. The rock struck with precision. It crushed Dave's cave pack against the wall and clamped down on his leg, wedging him tightly in the narrow chute. He was completely stuck. Trapped in the space, barely wide enough to move, Dave now faced one of the worst-case scenarios in caving, a chimney entrapment. With walls pressing from both sides and the stone bearing down, any rescue would be complicated and slow. But Dave had something on his side. experience. Decades of caving had trained him for chaos. Instead of panicking, he stayed calm and began to assess the situation. Moving had to be precise. One wrong shift could trigger more rockfall or worsen the jam. Ironically, the same pack that got him stuck might have also saved him. Wedged between him and the full weight of the rock, it acted as a buffer. Just enough to keep things from getting worse. Now, the real test began, getting out before the cave decided to shift again. Using a mix of sheer determination, practice technique, and raw strength, Dave finally managed to wriggle free from the crushing grip of the fallen rock. But the relief was short-lived. What he saw next made his stomach drop. The rock hadn't just tumbled down and rolled away, it had lodged itself firmly into a new position, sealing off the narrow chimney passage. What had once been a navigable route was now completely blocked. In a matter of seconds, the cave had reshaped itself, and with it, changed everything. Below the obstruction, Mindy was now trapped. She had passed through safely just minutes earlier, but now that same route was gone, cut off by a massive slab of immovable stone. Alone in the tight lower section of the chimney, she was confronted with a chilling realization. She was sealed inside, isolated from the rest of the group and the only known exit. The sound of rockfall, followed by Dave's frantic calls for help, snapped Joel Despain into action. As an experienced caver, he immediately understood the seriousness of what had just happened. Cave rescues are never simple. The unforgiving terrain, narrow spaces, and unpredictable structure make any intervention slow, risky, and complex. And now, their situation had shifted from a close call to a full-blown emergency, with a teammate trapped and time working against them. Even with a trio of seasoned explorers on hand, Joel's rapid descent into the cave marked the start of a desperate makeshift rescue. There was no time to wait for a formal team or specialized equipment. What they had on site was all they could count on. Unlike surface rescues where professionals can swarm in with high-tech gear and manpower, cave emergencies demand something else entirely: skill, ingenuity, and nerves of steel. In these lightless chambers, the only lifeline is often the people already inside. Now facing a crisis deep underground, Dave, Dane, and Joel found themselves staring down a brutal problem. A massive rock, far too heavy for one person to move, stood between Mindy and her only escape. Shifting it even slightly would require more than strength, it would require engineering finesse under crushing pressure. The three men leaned on their years of experience, quickly transforming into a team of underground problem solvers. Every move had to be precise. They examined the rock from every angle, searching for leverage points, debating force application, calculating risk in real time. One wrong nudge could trigger another collapse. But they had no choice. This wasn't about moving rock, it was about saving Mindy's life, and the cave wasn't giving them much time to get it right. The tight confines of the chimney passage severely limited what the team could do. There was no room for pulleys or large equipment, just raw human strength, simple tools, and whatever natural leverage they could muster from the cave walls around them. Then, after hours of calculated effort, came the breakthrough. The team managed to shift the massive stone just enough, just inches, to open a narrow space above it. The gap wasn't much, it looked impossible, but it was just wide enough for one determined person to try. That sliver of space was the line between a nightmare and escape, and Mindy was ready to fight for it. Mindy's escape wasn't just a climb, it was a test of precision, nerve, and endurance. The narrow gap the men had carved offered no margin for error. She had to contort her body with perfect control, every movement slow and deliberate, careful not to wedge herself or dislodge any loose rock. But inch by inch, she made her way through. When she finally emerged on the other side of the blockage, the cave was silent, then filled with a flood of relief. The nightmare was over. Even after ensuring Mindy's safety, the team didn't walk away immediately. They attempted to reposition the rock, hoping to restore the chimney to its original state, not just for themselves, but for anyone who might enter this cave in the future. It was a gesture of respect for the cave, for the caving community, and for the land itself.